Hello, my name is Sergey Korobov with Eaton Corporation, and today we're going to talk about the gray market. So, what is the gray market? Gray market is the unintended resale of genuine product through unauthorized sources. In other words, a gray market broker could sell you a brand new Eaton breaker still in the original box, but because it goes through one of those sources, our warranty and our relationship is no longer good. In other words, you would not be able to come back to a gray market source and tell them, hey, this breaker's not working, it's not tripping when it's supposed to. We would not be able to honor that warranty. Our warranty only is effective through authentic Eaton distributors like Fromm. Breaker brokers usually bill themselves as a new surplus house, but how can you really be sure? We have actually found many cases in which a breaker broker sells refurbished, used, reconditioned, and even counterfeit breakers, which are just complete knockoffs off of our product through their inventory. Electrical industry knockoffs are a $500 million industry per year in the United States alone. So this is a major market, major industry, and they have the means to be able to make their breakers look just like our authentic ones, and you, the customer, may not be able to tell the difference. When you buy a breaker from Fromm, you're getting a breaker that goes from Eaton's factory to our warehouse, to Fromm's warehouse, and then on to you as the customer. That process is always accountable, traceable, and you know exactly where that breaker has been. On the other hand, when you buy a breaker from a breaker broker, they're using a wide range of different people who they buy from, which means that there's not always a traceable path of where that breaker has been. That's why sometimes you can get a used breaker, reconditioned breaker, or even a counterfeit that can be sold through a breaker broker. Here we have an example of one breaker that came directly from Eaton's factory and the same exact catalog number HFD 3030L that we obtained from the gray market. Now notice that on our breaker you can see down here that it has the correct country of origin. Our molded case breakers are assembled in the Dominican Republic, and this package reflects that. On the other hand, when you look at the gray market box, in the bottom right, it says made in USA, which is not correct. Our breakers are always made in the Dominican Republic, and they have been for about 30 years. Notice that on our box, we have the date 190415T. There's always going to be a date code on the package of our box. This one indicates 2019, April, 04, and 15 is the day of the month. On the gray market breaker box, you can see that the date code is 080721, which indicates 2008, July 21st. So that's an 11-year-old breaker that you could potentially be getting from them. Finally, take a look at the logos that are on the boxes. Our box indicates the current Eaton marketing language, whereas the older one includes the Cutler Hammer name that we haven't used in as many as 10 or 15 years for our marketing language. So another indication that this is a very old breaker. On the breakers themselves, in this case you can see that we have the 190415T date code right on the breaker itself, which matches the box. Now, on the other hand, if you look at the breaker here from the gray market, this one has a date of 080811, which is different than the breaker date code on the box. They should always be matching. If they're not, that's a big red flag. Now, in addition to that, if you look at this breaker, we have a new label here above the switch, as well as numbered poles on top and numbered poles on the bottom. Also, on the right label of the breaker, you can see IEC markings right here on this label. In addition to that, this breaker actually indicates that it's made in USA, which of course we know it is not. So what's happening with this one is between the pole markings, the label, the IEC, what happened here is this breaker was originally made to live in the IEC European market, which means that it was built and tested to IEC standards, which are different than the standards we have here in the UL market in North America. What that means is that this breaker should not have a UL label because it's not compliant to UL standards, and technically your inspector should fail you for the installation of this breaker. Now note on the back of our breaker we have the label assembled in Dominican Republic. This would always be on the back of our molded case breakers because it correctly identifies the country of origin where our breakers are manufactured. Now if you look at the gray market breaker, on the back that label is missing, but we also noted before that it does have made in USA in the front. Okay. Now in addition to that, we have these two labels on the front, and because it says made in USA, we know that the label is not ours. Both of the front labels have been reprinted by the breaker broker. What that means is that you can't be sure of exactly how accurate this information is. We have seen breaker brokers change amperages and even AIC ratings on the front of their breakers. For you as a customer, that could be a huge liability when installing this breaker, because you just can't be sure how accurate this information is. We have also started laser etching our molded case breakers. We're including information about the breaker directly on the molded case itself rather than a label, so that it's harder for people to reproduce and to tamper with. In this case, you can see the 30 amps, the voltages, the date code both on the side and on the back of the breaker, and our label here with a barcode at the very bottom, laser etched directly onto the breaker. This is just one example where the gray market has tampered with the breaker and redid their labels. But we have lots of examples of breakers that have been sold from as late as 1985, 1992, and so on. And in many cases, we've seen counterfeits directly from China being sold as new surplus through a breaker broker. So what is Eaton doing to combat the gray market? Eaton has recently rolled out a new program called Power of Authenticity, which Fromm is a part of. Power of Authenticity allows us to cut our costs to be able to compete more closely to the new surplus that the gray market offers. That includes costs that are in line with gray market brokers throughout the country, and also our POA partners like Fromm have inventory in their stock to be able to serve your needs on the majority of the breakers that you would need. In addition to the local inventory that Fromm carries right here in Reading, Eaton also has an extensive inventory of safety stock in our Duncan, South Carolina location. That's only about 2 to 3 days away in shipping from here. Next time you have a need for a molded case breaker, give Fromm a chance. They have inventory right here locally at prices that are competitive against the gray market. And most of all, you're getting authentic breakers directly from the manufacturer that you know have never been installed, are not used or refurbished, and you're getting good quality product directly from Eaton. Thanks for taking the time to learn about it, and stay tuned for more videos from Fromm.